At the end of our last video, we had added a new category table to our data model and connected it to our budget table, our transactions table, and our monthly budget calculated table. Because we restructured our data model after we had defined our measures, a lot of stuff in our report is now going to be broken because our DAX formulas were referencing the category column when it existed in the transactions table. Now that it's moved to our new category table, we need to update our formulas. So let's head over to the data view, open our metrics table, and sure enough, we see a lot of yellow warning icons. This yellow icon tells us there's an error in the DAX calculation. Remember that we wrote our measures in a layered fashion, starting with a basic sum of the transaction amount, then moving up to our income and expenses measures, then further up into our time intelligence measures. When you structure your measures like this, it makes them a lot easier to troubleshoot and fix when something goes wrong. For example, we can start by opening up the base folder on our metrics table. If the transaction amount there looks good, which it does, for example, we can start by opening up the base folder in our metrics table. If the transaction amount measure there looks okay, we can then move up to the next layer. And yes, transaction amount looks fine, so let's start by fixing income and expenses. We'll start with expenses. Select the measure so the formula bar appears. Then, wherever we see the category column, we need to replace the table name transactions with our new table name category. And we'll do the same thing with our income measure. Notice that as we do this, the rest of our measures fix themselves. Now all the yellow warning symbols are gone, and we can go back to building our report. So let's go to the model view again. Our next task is to create a relationship from the monthly budget table to the date table. This goes back to when we created the year-month calculated column 2 videos ago. The purpose here is to make sure that when we use our slicers in the report to filter our income and expense data, we're also filtering our budget data. We can't do that unless the date table has a direct relationship to the table where our budget numbers are stored, which is the monthly budget table. So we'll click and drag the year-month column from the date table onto the monthly budget table. And a window will appear. It already knows that we want to create a relationship based on the year-month columns, but it realized that we're asking it to create a many-to-many relationship. It's identified the cardinality as many-to-many, and it's even displaying a big yellow warning message. We talked briefly about many-to-many relationships when we introduced you to the concept of granularity in table relationships. They are the rarest type of relationship and the most complex. The easiest way to think about many-to-many relationships is to imagine you have two database tables. The first table contains authors, and the second table contains books. Authors can write many books, and books can be written by many authors. Another common example is bank accounts. Imagine we have a table of bank accounts and then another table of bank account owners. A person can have many bank accounts, and bank accounts can have many owners. Thus, in both examples, many to many. Creating a relationship between two tables like this can be messy because it introduces ambiguity and could even lead to bad aggregations. For example, do I filter on the author column in the authors table or in the books table? If many of my bank accounts have multiple owners, how do I get an accurate count of the number of accounts my bank has or get an accurate sum of their balances? These kinds of questions illustrate why we need to be very careful when working with many-to-many relationships and be sure that we're getting accurate results from our calculations. Power BI gives us a warning about the many-to-many relationship we're about to create, but we're going to click OK because we understand what we're doing. Now, when we return to the model view, we can see that a bidirectional many-to-many relationship now exists between the date table and the monthly budget table. The thing that's different about this relationship compared to the others, though, is that the line is dotted between the two tables. The dotted line tells us that this is an inactive relationship as opposed to an active relationship. The reason this relationship is inactive is because we can't have active relationships moving in a circle between our monthly budget, category, date, and transactions table. If we had a circular relationship, this would create an ambiguous relationship between our various tables. and Power BI wouldn't know what to do with that. Instead, it's created this inactive relationship, which we can then use in DAX as a way to calculate our budget amounts. So, to fix this, all we have to do is go to our report table, then find our budget amount measure, and we're going to make a slight tweak to our budget amount formula. We're going to use a DAX function called useRelationship. In the useRelationship function, we have two arguments. The first is the name of the column on one side of the relationship that we want to use, and the second argument is the name of its partner column on the other side of the relationship. So in this case, we're just telling it to use the year-month column from our date table partnered with the year-month column from our monthly budget table. Now, when we look at our table in Power BI, we can see that our budget amounts sum up correctly. There's $2,351 for each month, and all 12 months sum up together correctly to $28,212. We can take this a step further and now go to our new category table and add in our category field. When we do this, we get the correct budget amount for each category for each month. For additional viewing or reading on many-to-many relationships, check out these videos from Patrick LeBlanc and Marco Russo.